Should you learn English pronunciation to reach fluency?
Let's talk about it. What's up, guys? Welcome to WaiGuo Friends English. This is a question we get quite often. And
the answer is no.
Typically, the answer is no, but there are specific instances in where it would be useful to really focus on that pronunciation.
Yeah, we have said before that when you are in an English-speaking country, you do not have to have the most perfect, pristine English just to live comfortably. You don't need that. And so absolutely, you don't need a very perfect native-like accent when you're speaking English. However, there's a major caveat here.
There are some sounds that are integral to being able to speak English well. So for example, like differentiating that R and that L is pretty important for words like really or probably, precisely or learn, for example. Those words need to be somewhat clear because they sound like something else if those R's and L's are not sorted properly. And it doesn't have to be perfect, there just has to be a distinguishing difference between that R and L.
Likewise, you need to be able to differentiate V and W because so many words come down to the difference between those two sounds. So for example, you have words like vase and waste, vest and west, vial and while, vine, wine, very, wary, which could go together. And vet or wet. There's so many of these words that are only distinguished just purely by one sound. Now, with that said, before you go into the rabbit hole to try to find all these pairs of words that are different because you made a different sound, generally speaking, the context does give us a lot of information. So if you say, my dog is vet, when you're supposed to say, my dog is wet, people are likely to understand what you're trying to mean. But there's a lot of these pairs in the English language that are just differentiated by having a voiced sound or a voiceless sound or having air escape the mouth as an explosive or as it slowly let out through the mouth. So it is pretty important.
Yeah, but it's not going to make or break whether we understand you for the most part. No doubt there will be some people that are like, what? And no matter what you do, they're not going to understand you because they're not used to having different accents around. But that said, there's plenty of people across the United States dialects and accents that they don't pronounce things properly. They just cut up their words, or they completely forget sounds, or they mix sounds. So this isn't something, you don't have to have a pristine, natural American accent. There's actually not one US accent that is the general American. That is kind of like a myth. I don't know why everybody says a general American accent, because there isn't one. So it is kind of like the UK. There's not a general UK accent. It's just not going to happen. Or a general British accent. It's not going to happen. There isn't one. If you ever come here, you're going to hear so many different accents, and you're going to realize it's like, okay, yeah, no, I don't have to worry about that. But these major sound differences, having those kind of sorted or at least different from one another, whether they're perfectly one of the American accents or not, it's okay. As long as you have a little bit of a difference between your V's and W's, your R's and L's, and that you can make that TH sound instead of making an S or an F sound. That one actually is quite often. Like that TH is very unique. It is everywhere. And getting that one right is going to be kind of a big deal. Like you will hear some dialects in America soften that TH to a D for like there will become dare, or like their dog becomes their dog. Over there, over there. You're going to hear stuff like that, but that's not super widespread. And if you want to be more like a professional, if you want to be some kind of leader in trainings or something, then you should probably get your THs in.
So a few words that you could practice this TH sound are words like something.
Instead of something or something, make sure that you have that TH, something. And yes, your tongue needs to come out a little bit between your teeth to make that sound properly.
A couple of other words that you can practice is soothing and sink versus think.
One of the drills we used to do quite often with students that really confused this sound, we would say think, sink, think. And those all had to be different. It's literally your lip and your tongue position. So just practice it. Think, sink. You're going to sound silly walking around your house. Like think, sink. But if you can get those separated or differentiated, you're going to sound a lot more clear to native English speakers.
On top of all of these things, in English, we have a massive amount of consonant clusters where we just shove consonant sounds right up against each other and you're just supposed to say them. These are very difficult for a lot of English language learners, especially depending on what their first language is. But It is tough. It can be really tough to really nail these down. So tough, in fact, that we're actually going to do another video just on these. But right now, the main thing is they are tricky. But again, they do not make or break you being understood. That is largely dependent on your body language, your paralanguage, the context around you. If you give a person enough context, they'll likely be able to understand what you're trying to say. The hard part is when you have a very short context, maybe just 1 or 2 sentence exchange, and the person has to get all that information from those 1 or 2 sentences. Or a phone call where you don't have the body language. In those kind of situations, pronunciation is more important. In that context, if you are doing a lot of work on the phone, if you're doing a lot of work where you're not able to see people very clearly, or you're being a leader, or you're doing something like a podcast or something like that, then yes, more of the meaning is going to be communicated by your pronunciation, how you enunciate, how clearly you are speaking. That's true. But for just living in an English-speaking country, you don't necessarily need that as long as you have that context.
All right, guys, this is a short one, but this is kind of what it is. We get this question so much, and that's basically our answer. There are some sounds you can practice and you can make clearer so that we understand you without saying what, right? Because if you lead online trainings, for example, and you start getting more emails or you get lots of questions of, hey, what did you say? Could you say that again? That's pretty annoying and it wastes a lot of time, right? So it is helpful to have that clearer pronunciation in some cases. But again, if you're working more of an in-person job, if you're working around a lot of different accents already, and if most people can understand exactly what you mean by the context, then you're good to go. Don't make it something that you drill for years of your life or months of your life. It's much more helpful to gain more range in your vocabulary and be able to smooth out that grammar foundation to make sure you're not skipping important words and to learn the paralanguage to back things up as well.
All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will catch you on the next one.